Welcome to Interpreting the Times. I'm Pastor Dave. It's a great day to love the Lord, and we are in Revelation chapter 20. Now, this is a power-packed chapter. We have the binding of Satan for 1,000 years. We have Satan's final rebellion against the world, and we have the great white throne judgment. Now, chapter 20, verse 1 opens up where John says he sees an angel coming down out of heaven, having the keys to the abyss, holding a great chain in his hand. This is the same place, this abyss. This is the same place that those locust demons, if you remember back in chapter 9, that they were released from. Well, now Satan is going to be bound and he's going to be put into this pit, this abyss. He's going to seize the dragon. The angel will seize the dragon, which is the ancient serpent. Now, if you remember back in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve in the garden, when the serpent, the snake, was talking to Eve, deceiving Eve, here in Revelation, we're told that that ancient serpent is the devil. It's Satan. So the angel seizes the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil, and he binds him for 1,000 years. He throws him into the abyss. He locks and he seals it, and he's kept there from deceiving the nations for 1,000 years. This day is going to happen. That moment will take place. And then John says, I then saw those who were beheaded during the tribulation period. They're there. The church comes back. We're there for 1,000 years, ruling and reigning with Jesus. As he sits on his throne, we will be his servants doing whatever he needs. But then, as chapter 20 tells us, when the 1,000 years come to an end, Satan then will be released. And many people, when they get to this part, they're saying, why would you release him? If the angel comes down and overpowers him and takes him and throws him into the abyss and then locks it up and chains its clothes, why would why in the world would he be released? Well, those who go into the millennial, those who survive the tribulation, which will be believers, and those believers who go into that 1,000-year time, the millennial period, they will be able to have children. So in a matter of 1,000 years, what would the population be like? Your guess is as good as mine how many people will be alive when the 1,000 years is over. And remember, every tongue must confess. Every knee will bow. Everybody has to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, even those in that 1,000 years, born in that 1,000-year period. So when Satan is released, he will go out and try to deceive all the nations, all the people, everybody in the still alive in that millennial period. He will try to deceive. And what breaks my heart is I think he will win some. I think some will still reject Jesus and follow Satan to their doom, to the literal eternal doom. Verses 11-15 talks about the dead being judged, talks about the great white throne judgment. Now let me make clear that there are two different judgments. One happens at the beginning, one happens at the end of the millennial. The beginning one is when the believers, the Christians, receive their rewards, their crowns. It's a time where we just kind of are accountable for everything that we said and did. But at the end, those who are not having eternal life, those whose names are not written in the book of life, they also will be accountable for all that they said and did. There will be a time when this great white throne judgment, they will go before the Lord and have to give a response for how they lived their lives. Now, this is called the second death. Death is so painful and hurts so much because of the separation. If you have a loved one, if they pass away, even though we know they go to be in heaven, if they're believers, they go to be in heaven with the Lord. Even though we know they're more alive now than ever before, we still grieve. Why? Because there's a separation. We can't enjoy time with them anymore for now. Well, that's the first death. It's a physical death. The second death is a spiritual death. Death means to be separated. The spiritual death, the second death, happens at the great white throne judgment, to where they are separated from God forever. They spend eternity in hell. It's not a picture that you want to even think about. That is why it's so important that you're studying Revelation. This is why it's so important that you're sharing the truth with people now so that they never have to face that. A believer will only go through physical death. A believer will never, ever go through spiritual death. Physical separation, yes. Spiritual separation from God, never, if you're a true believer. For those who reject Jesus, for those who reject the truth, as Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 to 15 talks about, they will be held accountable and they will be forever separated from Jesus Christ. Death in Hades. Hades is a different teaching for a different time, but death in Hades are then thrown into the lake of fire where the Antichrist, the false prophet, and now the devil is sent for eternity. But let's focus on the good news. The good news is that there's going to be a 1,000-year reign, that Jesus will rule, that we will be able to serve him, that we'll be able to fellowship. He will dwell with us. He will be our God. We will be his people. And for that 1,000 years, there will be a time when that comes to an end. But during that time, there'll be no evil. There'll be no deception. Satan will be bound. His influence, his power will be stopped. Then there'll be a season, I believe it will be a brief season, but there'll be a season where he's allowed to be freed. And then every heart will have to confess that Jesus is Lord and reject the enemy so that they can spend eternity with the Lord. This is the truth of chapter 20. I hope you get it into your heart so that you can share it with others. Chapter 21 continues this good news story. We'll see you then. God bless you.